This week, we're going to talk about bike fit, especially during the off season. It's kind of an important time to look at your bike, make sure you got the right fit going on as you go into that off season. So these are the key points, and I've learned this through talking to multiple bike fitters. Worked with them in person several times. I've had three different bike fitters kind of over the time. One used kind of his own metrics. Another one used a retool system. And another one was more his own metrics as well. He actually came to my house and did my bike fit. So I kind of grilled him on a few tips, especially those looking maybe from going to a road bike to a tri bike. It does make a difference. You can't just look out there and be like, oh, I'm a 56 road bike. I'm going to go do a 56 tri bike and I should be all set. And I could just slam everything to where I needed it and be able to take off and ride on that bike and be efficient and not causing injuries over time, which is unfortunately totally incorrect. So these are a few points you need to be looking at when you're out there looking at tri bikes, or if you have your own and you get that fit dial in. Hopefully you've got a bike that kind of works with you. And these are kind of a few tips to look at to figure out, is this bike really going to work, or I'm going to have to invest some more time and money in looking at a different bike, possibly, upgrading, trading in, selling yours, buying another, either new or used. Tons of sales going on all the time. Again, my athletes, they get a discount with Quintana Roo, so I ride a Quintana Roo bike and find that the frame that I use fits very well. So with that, let's just jump right into it. So we're specifically talking about tri and time trial bikes. So I don't want to get confused with road bikes because they're kind of a different animal. It's a different geometry, different kind of aerodynamics, different ways you sit on the bike and position. So we're talking a little bit apples to oranges when we're talking about road bikes or tri bikes. So we're specifically talking about tri bikes. So why do you need a good fit other than feeling comfortable on the bike? Usually, if you have a kind of questionable fit, you can still feel reasonably comfortable. But once you get past, if you're going a long distance, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours on that bike, it can not only cause you discomfort, but it can also cause you bad fit, it can cause you injuries. So overuse, repetitive injuries like knees, ankles. If you're hitting them at the wrong angles and that bike's forcing you to be at those angles as you're spinning along, that can cause you to have injuries. I know personally, when I had my third fit done with my Quintana Roo, my seat was too far back. They moved up a little bit, and that helped with some knee pains I was having, especially in the right knee. So I'd go do my runs and just excruciating pain. Walk around, I was fine, but usually it got worse after bike rides. So after I did the fit, it was very apparent that the bike fit had a problem with that. It can affect your other activities, like I just mentioned. It can affect your swimming and your running. If you're out there and you're putting pressure in your hips in the wrong spot and pressure in your joints in the wrong spot, you go out and do runs, it can cause very big problems in your mechanics, and that you can have severe detrimental effects in your runs and your swims as you're going through if you have a bad fit. So if you're on your bike and if you got tingles, if you got pain, if you're going numb in places, that is not normal and you need to get your fit checked. So that is the kind of the key indicator that says something's wrong with my bike fit. Not only does it feel comfortable, but after time, I'm going numb in places, I'm getting tingly, for guys and for gals, especially in the sensitive areas on the seat. If you're going numb there, you've got a bad fit, or maybe you change the seat, that's a fitter to help you out. There's lots of different things going on. So I'm not going to get into the technical parts. Just a few things to kind of keep in mind when you're looking at bike fit, especially if you're going to maybe go buy a time trial bike for the first time, or if you've got a current one and you're kind of questioning whether or not you can make it fit for what you need. So what you're kind of looking for, the keys that I got from my bike fitter when I was talking to him, was the cockpit length. So from the seat to the handlebars, and the saddle, the handlebar height drop. So you got the height of your handlebars, wherever your rest is, and then the height of the seat. So a lot of you'll see the super aggressive riders have that high seat and low handlebars, and they're kind of at a downward incline as they're riding along. The more level you get with that, the more comfortable it usually is. So there's a fine point, as you just don't want to slam the bars down as low as possible, seat up as high as possible, and then try to ride along, because that seat height will affect how your knees and your ankles and everything rotates. It also affects how you position your body over time and where you put all your weight as you're riding along. So that's going to be the crucial point when you're looking at bikes, because not all of them, and we'll get into this, not all of them are built the same in that respect. So typically, if you're looking at a bike and you're kind of questioning, well, if you're able to go out and ride a bike, test a bike, typically, when you're looking at a bike, you want to look at the size. Some are small, medium, and large, and extra large. Some are, go by road bike sizes, 54, 56, 58, 60. So you want to look at that size, but if you find you're kind of in the middle range, typically size down is probably a little bit better because you could adjust it and do things to get it to the right position. But if a deep drop, like if your handlebars and you don't like them lower and your seat higher, then stay a size down because that becomes more and more drastic and it's harder to manipulate that with the larger size bikes. So size down is okay, usually. If you don't like a deep drop, but if you do want to be aggressive about it, then you need a little bit more play in that and you can go with a larger frame. So it's not necessarily an easy one-stop solution to everything. Unfortunately, some bikes, and I get, like I said, the geometry of the manufacturers are a little bit different. So you kind of have to test them out, ride them out. If you've got a used bike you're looking at, hopefully you can ride it in person. It's kind of tough to go off unless you've already ridden that brand before and you know how it worked for you. It's kind of hard to figure out what size is going to be right if you're kind of in between. And we'll hit the who, so the manufacturers. So use their charts. A lot of them will supply charts for fitting. So they'll have your height, your inseam, maybe your arm length if they're really good. They'll have all these dimensions, from your knee down to your ankle, from your knee to your hip, stuff like that, to give you really good, accurate information on what differences they can cover. Because you can change the crank arm length, you can change the seat height, you can get there's only so far you can put the seat down, but you can get your seat up to a certain point, and maybe it'll make an extension for you if you're extra tall and you're, have an athlete that's 6'9", so he kind of pushes the high end of the frames that he can ride. So that seat post has to be really high in order to get him up and be able to fit on that frame. But then you have to be careful. If you have too small a frame, you cannot make up that adjustment in the risers for the aero bars. So you got to be careful with that. So not all brands are the same. So that's a key too. And there's been speculation out in the world that they do this on purpose. So if you're riding a Quintana Roo, it's not going to match up to a Specialized. It's not going to match up to a Giant or a Trek. Each one of them does their own little tweaks to the frames and geometry. So it's going to ride a little bit different regardless of what size it says, what the sizing charts say. It's going to feel a little bit different. So just because it looks cool doesn't necessarily mean it's the best bike for you. There's probably a good medium point for looking cool, for price, for availability, what you can get for the bike and what kind of components. And then price probably usually plays a big factor in there too. Nowadays, when you're dealing with the disc wheels, disc brakes, that kind of plays in there too. That changes the frame geometry just a little bit because the dropouts have to be a little bit wider to account for those disc brakes. So, like I said, not all brands are the same. So when you're going out there looking at bikes, make sure, I know, like Quintana Roo, for example, here in Kansas City where I live, the triathlon store up north, they actually have Quintana Roo. So if you want to go out there and try them out, you can, and then go order them online if you want. They ship them straight to your house, practically assembled. You have to do like take 2 steps, put the wheel in, and put the handlebars up, and you're off and riding. The box, a shameless plug, is also great because you can use that to ship the bike anywhere and not really have to take it apart. It's really super convenient. So that's the next point. You can't jump brand to brand necessarily. So if you're riding a 56 Trek, you can't go to a medium Quintana Roo necessarily. So always try to get out there. So like I said, try shops. If you're local to wherever they manufacture them, if you're up by Trek in Wisconsin, you can probably go to their factory and they've got tons of demos you can try out. Trek stores obviously have a lot of Trek bikes. They got Trek stores a lot of locations. Like I said, our triathlon shop up north has Quintana Roo. We've got shops with Felt. We've got shops with Specialized. We've got shops with Giant. So there should be some locations where you could try these bikes out. If it's a really unique bike like Ventum's or something like that, it's going to be difficult, but maybe at the race expos, maybe they have demos that you can try out, or you can ask somebody about it. Just go out and ride the bike. I know Quintana Roo, if you're local to the events are kind of local to them, they'll bring the bikes out and you can try them out. You can even rent Quintana Roos at some races. And that's a great way to just try them out too. If you're going to age group nationals and you don't want it for a full Ironman or something like that, you don't want to to test it out in a long distance endurance event. You try it out at USAT, and if you like it, you can go there and get hooked up. Usually they have specials there at races. But a lot of bike shops will come at expos and have their bikes out, and you can try them out. So that's kind of a quick list. Check the chat here real quick. So right now we don't have any questions out there floating around. So that was kind of hitting the main points I wanted to focus on today, keeping it short and sweet. So the bike fit is kind of a crucial component, especially when you're getting a long distance endurance events. You're doing that training on a bike. You know, you're doing 5 hours, 6 hours, 100 miles, 200 miles, 300 miles a week on your bike, whether it be trainer, whether it be outdoors or wherever. You're spending a lot of time on that bike, so you need to make sure that fit is right. And if you find the right fitter, what I recommend is don't just, oh, well, they're retool certified, so they must be good. Not necessarily so. Check to see what their follow-up is. Like I said, I found a local guy here that services a lot of athletes that actually come to your house to bring a trailer. He's got full of parts if he needs to, if you need different risers and different seats to try out or something like that. He's great. He shimmed my pedals, or he shimmed my cleats on my shoes. It kind of helped with a little bit of pronation, supination on different aspects of my pedaling. He moved my seat forward, moved my handlebars back. Basically, I was completely wrong set up from my retool fitting and how I should be riding on a bike. Retool fitting, he just kind of focused on, oh, well, you know, let's make you aggressive as possible and back it off a little bit. And then he offered me one opportunity to come back in 60-day time period to get a second readjustment, which I did go back for, and we really didn't change that much. So I was a little disappointed in that. But with the guy that came to my house, basically, I think he came back 6 or 7 times. So I recommend him to all my local athletes here. So if you can find somebody like that, even if you have to go to their house, if they're somewhat local, but if there's an opportunity, you can come back and do fittings afterwards, because it's hard to tell doing a fitting and then ride it for a week and see how it feels. It's going to take a few weeks going out long rides and just seeing how you're adapting, because you're going to adapt a little bit different. You know, if you raise the seat up a little bit and you put the handlebars back a little bit, you're going to be hitting your hamstrings a little bit differently. You're going to be hitting your quads a little differently, and your calves. So it's going to take a little adjustment, because that first week you'd say, well, you know, my hamstrings are, you know, they're feeling really, you know, tore up after those rides and stuff. But over time, it's a muscular change that you need to adapt to. And over time, you adapt to it, and it's fine. You actually can produce more power because you're using the right muscle engagement. If you've got the wrong fit, you might not be able to use your glutes and your hamstrings as much as you should be. So that being said, make sure you give it a window of time to be able to come back and say, hey, you know, I've ridden it, you know, for 2 months, build up. I did a half Ironman, and I'm still having knee pain. So let's look at that. I've ridden it for 6 months, did a full Ironman. I'm still having problems with back pain. Let's look at that. So it's a reiterative process. Just like getting your bike tuned up, I would recommend getting your fit redone. So that is something I will be looking into as the new year approaches, especially getting ready for the next season, is talking to my fitter to come back and do another fitting to make sure everything's up to speed, because our bodies do change over time. Your flexibility changes over time. If you're doing the right things, then you could become more flexible. So you could have the opportunity to open up your hips more or do something more, be a little bit more aggressive and still be okay and get the, you know, 2 or 3 extra watts out of there. So make sure you're staying on top of that, and make sure you're paying attention to that fit, because over time that does make a difference. It could be the difference between a miserable Ironman bike ride and getting off the bike and feeling in good shape to start hitting that run, because that run you're going to need everything you get. And if that bike ride is stealing efficiency because of a bad fit, then you definitely don't want that, because that's something you can't address. And it really takes maybe 2 hours of your time. And it's going to cost you a little bit of money, but I think in the end, when you get off that bike after 112 miles, you'll be glad you spent that little bit extra to get a true bike fit.